know me, I'm Gina Granberry, 12 Howard Street. I've been a resident actually on my home since 1999. And I'm also a member and volunteer with Unite for Change. I'm asking for your support to vote for this audience. It's a long time coming. I'm glad someone decided to step up for what would be considered what's good for the whole. It will help prevent unnecessary vacancies. In part, mediation will also allow the homeowners to actually work with the banks face-to-face, even in the native language. Instead of being passed off to someone else via telephone, just shuffling paper and giving homeowners the runaround. It will also bring to light any flaws to obtaining of the loans, if any, who actually own the homeowner, who actually is the holder of the loan, and if they even have or have the right to foreclose. Unfortunately, I have been caught up in this particular foreclosure issue, and I'm glad that Registrar O'Brien actually was able to come to assistance for us, because I actually made the complaint long before my home became an issue in 2008 with the state, the Attorney General's office, who just said, oh, they can do that, they can reassign loans, it's not a big deal. And I'm so glad that someone took the time and did actually step up and actually fight for us, supporting us, and actually for your support as well in the city of Lynn. Thank you.
My name is Ron Mendez. I live at 124 Ocean Street here in Lynn, and I'm also a local attorney. And some of the people that are dealing with these problems are clients of ours in our law office here in Lynn. And I just want to give you a couple of examples of some of the more outrageous things I've seen the banks do in the last few years. I had a gentleman who is going through a divorce situation and owns a house in West Lynn, and showed up home at his home one day and found a poster plastered on his front door. His locks were changed, his house was winterized, his plumbing was shut off, and the bank hadn't even yet foreclosed on the house. There is a little error Bank of America made. So the issue of the documents is a huge issue. It only scratches the surface of some of the things that have been done in in this very community, but all across the country as well. When I read through the proposal, it actually occurred to me that homeowners do have a little bit of a mediation process available to them in housing court. The only problem with that mediation process is the only question and the only topic that is allowed to be discussed is, when will you move out? And if the answer is anything less than 30 days, you're going to have a problem there. So we need something like this. I believe in mortgage mediation. In fact, I think this proposal should be taken down to Beacon Hill and enacted as a state law. Yeah. The landlord has to go into court and mediate with tenants in order to evict tenants. A bank should have to go into court and mediate with homeowners in order to foreclose on their homes. It just makes sense. For reasons I'm unable to comprehend, our state legislature hasn't acted on enacting mortgage mediation. Hopefully we can convince them to do something about this problem. I urge you to support this. Thank you very much.
My name is Abdelak Suisa. I'm originally from Morocco. So I came from Morocco to the United States to achieve what I couldn't achieve back home because we don't have means. So I just had that little small tiny dream, just to have a steady job and a house to live in. And I achieved that. But finally, everything is vanishing because of the big banks. If I was behind, my payment is not because of fault of mine. I was behind because the economy went down, so I wasn't making that much money I was to make before. I applied for the loan modification program. The bank keep asking me for the same documents. I send the document, they keep asking me for it. I end up sending the same document like 10 times. At the end, they declined the loan modification program. They foreclosed on my house, and they're trying to evict me. So please vote in favor of these arguments. We elected you because we have faith in you. Thank you.
is Gaudi Jean-Francois. I'm a resident of 71 Michigan Ave. I'm here tonight. It's because I think it's about time finally someone, Pete and the council president, Tim Fallon, decide to take actions against foreclosure issues in Lynn. When I used to work for the mayor's office a year ago, and it was on a daily basis, we had people coming to the office and asking for help. And the answer was always, go to housing. And nothing was being done. They never done anything for them. Actually, tonight I was at home working on a foreclosure, on a loan modification for 2 seniors. And then I checked my Facebook account and I saw Marilyn Palm said, the chamber is packed. I run. I said to those people, I come back, I have to come here to testify. I would say it is really sad to see people get elected but not taking care of people that vote for them. All of you guys here tonight to know you have an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. By voting, by helping those people, you're keeping families together. And all of us here should understand family is the foundation of the society. By voting in favor of this ordinance, we'll save our city. We'll keep our neighborhood safer. Will make a big difference in people's lives. And once again, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys. Hopefully tonight, this is going to be a sample not only for the state as one man said, but for the entire country. Thank you.
If I can, before we hear from our next speaker, I'm assuming that there are many people that are not going to speak today that are in favor of this ordinance. If we could have a show of hands, people that are not going to speak that are in favor of this ordinance, please. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Isaac Simon Hodes. I'm an organizer with Lynn United for Change. And at least as importantly, I'm a proud Lynner who's been in this city my whole life. As you can see from the crowd here tonight, this is an issue that's not confined to one part of the city or one group of residents. I could name for you right now 2 or 3 people from every ward in the city who are in this audience who are directly affected, either in foreclosure or facing that possibility. And when you look around, you can see that there are people here, if you heard them testify, who are 3rd or 4th generation Lynners, and there are others here who are more recent immigrants. This is an issue that truly affects us all. These are working folks who are affected by this. These are folks who were hit hard by this recession. These are people from every conceivable background. There are veterans in this audience who are affected by the foreclosure crisis. There are parents, there are families. Now, our group has been fighting house by house to find some way to keep families in their homes. And I'm tremendously proud of the courage that I've seen and of the unity of folks coming together. It doesn't matter what language, what nationality, what race, what background. If you come to one of our meetings, you'll see the whole spectrum of Lynn there supporting each other in this struggle. And that's important because this is something that affects each of us individually who are homeowners who are facing foreclosure, but it also affects the neighborhoods. So I'm not in foreclosure myself, but I know that 3 houses down, there's a family that is, and that house could become vacant. And that's true across the city. I just want to speak briefly to the tremendous human toll this crisis is causing. We see the numbers a lot in the trends and the graphs, but behind every one of those cases is a family who isn't sleeping at night. There are people who literally have family members being hospitalized due to high blood pressure. We have a family here with us who had an elderly member who had to be hospitalized due to a heart attack because of the foreclosure notice they received. It's those big things. It's the possibility of displacement from a neighborhood they know. It's children being pushed out of the schools that they know. And it's also the little things. There's a family here tonight who got a question from one of their neighbors. And this is up in the Highlands. He said, "Why don't you plant the flowers? You used to plant flowers every year, and I always loved seeing them." And this family just didn't have the heart, this particular woman, she didn't have the heart to tell her neighbor. It's because they were facing foreclosure, they were terrified, they didn't know what was going to happen. And you extrapolate 1,000 times those little things, and that's what begins to break our neighborhoods apart. So we're going to keep fighting house by house to find alternatives, to keep families in their homes. But we don't catch everyone, we know that, and that's why we're here tonight. That's why we're looking to our city council for a policy response that'll really address the issue. Now, I just want to clarify a few things, because I think there's a lot of misinformation about this issue in general in the country. One thing this ordinance is not about is people who just don't want to pay their mortgage. This is about people who just happened to need to buy a place to live during an unprecedented housing crisis, an unprecedented housing bubble, the likes of which we've never seen in this country, that was engineered on Wall Street by irresponsible big banks. Somewhere out there in the country, maybe there's someone who, is sailing around in a yacht based on their mortgage because they just stopped paying. But let me tell you, that person is not in Lynn, Massachusetts. I know these stories. I meet with these families. People are working so many hours a week. They're working second jobs and third jobs. They're working their fingers to the bone to find some way to pay this mortgage. They're sending banks checks and getting the checks sent back. They don't want to avoid payments. They're trying to make payments and not being allowed to. So this is not about people who don't want to pay. This is people who desperately want to pay. They just want a fair shake and a fair deal. This ordinance is also emphatically not about punishing small banks or credit unions. Frankly, we don't feel like this ordinance is about punishing anyone. We feel like these are common sense measures that across the board are things that should be taken care of anyway. But just to be clear, the only requirement this ordinance places on local banks that are based in Massachusetts and that do a relatively small number of foreclosures per year, the only requirement is to sit down face-to-face prior to the foreclosure and try to work something out with the assistance of an expert mediator who can present options that either the lender or the homeowner might not have been aware of. If that process fails, the lender is allowed to proceed with the foreclosure, and that's it. And we don't feel like that's a burden in any way on local banks to engage in mediation for the 2 or 3 or 0 foreclosures that they do a year. We've looked at the numbers, we know who the culprit is here, and it's not primarily the small banks. We know that, and we recognize that, and we don't feel like it's actually a negative thing to have the framework to sit down face to face and work something out, or at least attempt to do so. And I just want to say, if you look at the stickers we wore coming in, if you need any proof about us not feeling animosity in that direction, look at the stickers. They say, you know, we're taking on Wall Street and the big banks. Okay, we know that that's where the problem arose. That's who engineered the bubble. You know, that's who gutted the regulations years ago that permitted it to happen. Now that said, again, we don't feel like engaging in mediation is something that's negative. And, you know, I hope that the local banks can get together with us on this and make it a united effort of all stakeholders in our local community, and we consider you, of course, stakeholders along with us. For two reasons. Number one is we've got these stickers, and we're a low-budget organization, and we don't want to change those stickers. We don't have the money for that. But seriously, number two, because we think the mediation really works, and we've seen that. If you look at the numbers for programs like the one in Philadelphia, it's extraordinary the number of foreclosures that are avoided. And we're looking to our local lenders to be leaders on this, to show that mediation does work. Because for you, it's not a burden. You're down the street. You come in, you sit down, you try to work something out. If it doesn't work, as long as you gave a good faith effort, you proceed as you would have anyway. But we think you can work with us and work with homeowners to lead the way. And I remember when I was young, you know, a lot of my friends would get our first bank accounts and there'd be a little blue passbook, and I won't mention particular banks, but let me tell you, those passbooks did not say Bank of America, they did not say Wells Fargo. There's a reason for that. And those banks were connected. And we know that some of those local banks are a little bit larger now than they were. I won't say how many years ago when I was in elementary school. But we fervently hope that you're able, despite being maybe a little bit bigger, to maintain that same kind of identity. To be able to maintain that connection with the community where you'll embrace this as an opportunity. It is not punishment to be asked to sit down face to face and try to work something out. It's a framework there, and we feel like it'll help all of us, and we genuinely believe you can be a leader on this, and you can differentiate yourself. If the big banks choose not to participate, and if by some chance Jamie Dimon's in the back row, we hope you participate too, Chase Bank and Bank of America. But if by some chance they don't, we hope the local banks will show that this is a positive thing. I just want to mention one last thing, and I apologize for going a little over time, but this is very close to my heart. And I know so many of the folks in this room, and I thank everyone in this room for coming out. One last thing that we feel this ordinance is about. It's about democracy with a small d. Party doesn't matter. This is about the ability of local people to come together and address a problem that's affecting our entire community. And that's something that at many levels of government is not happening enough anymore. And when you see the declining numbers of people that vote, and you see that what's often perceived as apathy, it's because we're not able to tackle these problems in ways we should sometimes. And with the foreclosure crisis, we've seen that. And you can ask almost anyone in this room, and they'll give you examples. At the federal level, we had something called the Independent Foreclosure Review. It was part of a settlement, and it was supposed to look into specific instances of foreclosure fraud and incorrect foreclosures so that those families could be compensated for illegal foreclosures, but also so we could get to the root of the problem, some of which John O'Brien mentioned earlier. Well, that independent foreclosure review turned out to be not so independent. The banks ended up funding the people who were doing the reviewing. And in the end, it ended up not even being a review. It was so ineffective, it was cut off. And they decided we're going to cut checks for $600, $1,000, and just send them out to everyone who we think was wronged and call it even. That's the reason that we're so frustrated with the lack of response. And there's the Home Affordable Modification Program, the federal government's attempt to work out modifications. And again, there weren't too many modifications being issued given the size of the problem, and those that were often not affordable. They would duplicate some of the original problems where they'd have an interest rate that after a few years goes up, and they didn't get to the fundamental issue which was the housing bubble created on Wall Street that put people so far underwater they'd never be able to get back above. So those are the kinds of responses we saw that were undercut, frankly, by the lobbying, by the inability of the Senate, of other bodies, to really do what was right, free from the influence of these big banks. So that's why we feel like this is about democracy tonight. This is about a body, the Lynn City Council, that is a heck of a lot closer to our neighborhoods and to the families dealing with this than it is to either Wall Street or to the propaganda machine that comes out of those banks. And we have faith that all of you are hearing our voices more loudly than you're hearing this propaganda that's constantly pumped out, whoever's mouth it comes from. And I remember clearly when Councilors Capano and Phelan came to a meeting of our group, and I think they really connected with this issue based on the personal interaction. And we know that other councilors as well have direct experience with their constituents, and we've spoken with many of the other councilors, and we appreciate all your concern and your diligence in taking this issue on. And you know, what we're looking for tonight is for you to show that, for you to stand together with us, because we've been fighting this fight, and we feel like we haven't been supported by any of these government bodies, and we want that to be changed tonight. We know Lynn is a city of purpose. So I just want to close by saying that I've always been proud to be a Lynner, and as any of you know who move in circles outside of Lynn, you know, we take our fair share of flack, and we hear a lot of stereotypes about our city. And the college I ended up going to had a lot of folks who had never been in a place like Lynn. And there's some great folks there, but there are a lot of folks who are the same people now who are making up these myths about these deadbeats who don't want to pay their loans. They don't understand the story, but you've heard it tonight from the policy level, from the Register of Deeds, from families who have faced it. And we're sick of that. We're ready to stand together with counselors who understand this issue and will fight together with us. And we do want to just add at the end that we, again, feel like the local banks, you can be part of this fight together with us to find a resolution to this foreclosure crisis that's really hurting all of us, and mitigate those foreclosures and participate in mediation and lead the way out of this mess. So I just want to close by saying that we hope you'll join us, maybe at another meeting, maybe somewhere down the line, in saying that whether it's in the policy realm or it's out at a protest, that we have one question we ask and we know the answer. What do we do when the banks attack?
Mr. President, honorable councilors, I'm Leon Friedman. I'm not a Lynner. I live on Plum Island, the portion that's not floating out into the open. I'm here tonight as an advocate for the Massachusetts Foreclosure Defense League. Register O'Brien, you're a tough act to follow. I'll do my best. Also, I'm one of the crazy guys that went to Register O'Brien and asked him how I could sue him so that we can get this thing in the eye of the public. And we've been friends since then. I don't think we're here this evening for John O'Brien. I think we're here tonight because of John O'Brien. Because what John O'Brien has done for the country. He has not isolated his efforts and his endeavors just to our community. He's really become a national figure. And I and my group, of course, thank him very much for that. The subject tonight is one that we can be debated and discussed for a long time, because the fraud that has been perpetrated upon the nation, upon the citizens and taxpayers of Lynn, are so heinous as to hear from the Attorney General of the United States that the financial institutions that did this, that disrupt our lives daily, millions of lives, are too big to fail. Well, we're here tonight. If the U.S. government can't control them, I'm asking you councilors to do it. Unanimously vote for this legislation. I cannot implore you enough, strongly enough, to vote on what's in front of you this evening. We, the people of Lynn, of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, people of our country, you, the Council of Lynn, must do what's consciously right to correct these wrongs. We need you to send a message, the message to vote unanimously on this legislation, that we're not going to tolerate this crap anymore. Please, vote yes tonight for homeowner protection. It's the right thing to do for the city, it's the right thing to do for the taxpayers of Lynn, and it's the right thing to do for our nation. You take the lead, and you're going to find the rest of the country will follow you. We need a leader, and the leader is John O'Brien and the councilors of Lynn. Lastly, I want to take these last few moments to extend to John O'Brien what I think is the heartfelt thanks of millions of Americans who have given confidence to the fact that it is truly an American dream to own a home. To live in a home without fear that to live in that home without fear that a devious entity will take that home without due course and legal right. This is still America, and John O'Brien has been a leader working hard and diligently to protect our rights. I ask everyone here, councilors, once again to please vote unanimously for this bill. I thank you very much. John O'Brien for everything that he's done, and I want to God bless America.
Mr. President, members of the City Council, my name is David Surface. Mr. O'Brien, I'm one of the CEOs who is not afraid to show up here because I'm with St. Jean's Credit Union, and we do the right thing. And I would bet a lot of our members are in the room clapping, I would hope so. I hope that blue book was the St. Jean's book. No, we've been living in the city since 1910. We have never abandoned the city of Lynn. We have over 8,000 members at our credit union that live in Lynn. We have over $50 million out in mortgages. And as of today, we have one delinquent mortgage more than 60 days. That's a testament on how we underwrite our loans. I'll give you a quick story. I know there's other speakers, but about 3 years ago, we had a young couple come into us with a combined income, husband and wife were working, $60,000. Came to us and brought us a pre-approval letter from a mortgage company that said they were pre-approved for a mortgage of of $300,000. So, being a credit union and being who we are, we said, well, that's great, let us look at the documents. We looked at the documents, went through it, and at the end, my chief loan officer asked the couple, well, how's your catering business doing? And the couple looked at him and said, what catering business? Well, according to this application, you have a catering business that makes you $90,000 more a year. Those are the stories that we, at the credit union level, have been trying to tell members of Congress, everybody that we can tell. Through the whole crisis, from 2008, when things really got bad, through today, we've been continuing to lend at record numbers. We're helping people out of foreclosure by refinancing their loans. There's some people, unfortunately, we can't help everybody. We've had instances where we've modified loans, we've modified mortgages for people to keep them in their homes. Before we even consider foreclosure, we go 90 days plus another 150. In the meantime, we try to bring people in and sit down and talk with them and look for ways to keep them in their homes. But I can honestly say that I can't say that we have a perfect track record on foreclosures. We've had one since I've been there in the city of Lynn, since I've been at the credit union 12, I'm going on 13 years. One foreclosure. So my only concern is when legislators, and myself, I will admit I'm chairman of my board of selectmen in my town, so I know what it's like. I have constituents myself. When legislating, please don't paint all the institutions with the same brush. We're one of the good people in town, in the city. I mean, we're a fabric of the city. St. G's has been here, like I said, and it is a city of firsts. We were the first credit union created in the state of Massachusetts, second in the country, and we're still here in the city of Lynn. The only concern is that when applying this to all of the institutions, it almost feels like you're getting a speeding ticket when you're going at the speed limit. Please don't punish the smaller institutions, the people that have been doing the day-to-day work with your constituents, with the people in the audience, our members. That's the only thing that I caution, or I would ask that you consider some type of exemption for, because we're doing it, we've been doing it, we probably should have wrote the ordinance, because it's basically our SOP. But when you mandate it, it feels like we're being punished for doing the right thing. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, my name is Cheryl D'Amico, and I unfortunately lost my home. And it wasn't because I couldn't pay my mortgage, it was because I ended up with stage 4 cancer, and my husband ended up with a triple bypass, and Bank of America didn't want to even talk to us. They never took us to court, they never gave us an eviction notice, they put a notice on our door and told us we had to be out in 72 hours or else. I got in touch with Isaiah from LynnUnited.com, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have got an extra 3 months in our home. I'm here to ask you to help other people that don't lose their home. I lost my home last year in September, and my home is still empty on Lexington Street. It's a shame because it's making other people's property value go down because the bank wouldn't talk to us after we got out of the hospital. My husband and I were in the hospital for over 9 years, and I'm still fighting cancer, and my husband's still fighting his heart disease. And I want to thank you very much for taking time, and please think about passing this bill. There are a lot of people on this panel that I do know. I know Mr. Losey from Papuana. I know Mr. Barton. I know Mr. Sears from coming in with Welch Florist. I used to be there all the time. He was a counselor running back then when he first started. So I know you people, and I've lived in this city for 63 years since I was born. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and please consider this. God bless you all.
Good evening. I want to say something that maybe wasn't mentioned, and it's the emotional drama that the family has to live. And most of the people here who have lost their house probably 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You can ask them, but they still haven't been healed. They're still crying. I lost my home, and the memory that I have is me sitting in the car after going in the basement in my sister's house and seeing just a couple of boxes, or what was left of all my dreams and all my hard work. It was just those boxes. And I remember going in the car and just crying and saying, I want to go home, but I can't go home. It's a terrible, terrible feeling, and not only that, but it affects the whole family. It affects my son. I lost my business with my home, and I lost everything that I ever had. And not only that, but it affected my credit. So then I had to go find a place to live, and I'm still struggling after all the time, just to stand up. And I just want, it's like you take dominoes. It's not just one thing that happens, you just keep going. And I'm trying still to stand up, and I want to say that a lot of people like me, we're still crying over what happened because we haven't found a solution still to the problems that we're facing to this day. So I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eloise Lawrence, and I am an attorney from the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau and a very proud member of Lynn United for Change. I have the distinct honor of spending every week in Lynn and representing former homeowners and tenants in the eviction court. And many of the people in the audience I've had the privilege of representing. These are amazing people who are fighting so hard and so long, and they shouldn't have to be there. And my request of you, counselors, is to put me out of a job. Please make sure that I don't have to keep going to eviction court to represent these people. Out of a job because these people should never get to eviction court. The problem should be solved much farther up the road. And this bill, this ordinance will do that. This will force rational, economic, just behavior by all parties. You are doing the right thing tonight. So I commend you in advance of your unanimous vote. One last point by I think, very brave and honorable gentleman from St. Jean's Credit Union who spoke tonight. I think that it is really commendable that they have only done one foreclosure in the time that he has been there. I wish all banks acted as he does. It is not punishment, though, sir, to do the right thing. This is the right thing. Thank you.
Bought my house cheap back 14 years ago. Raised my 3 kids, and in the age, and I built a house. And I'm finally able to stay in my house. I got my qualification, but I had an arm mortgage, which nobody would touch. Took me since 2008 work with a state law firm, and it cost me $3,500. I got 1,000 back, and to get rid of that. Even half, they weren't doing nothing. So I went with Lynn United, and I got my house back. Is people to stay in the house and not be able to go into low income, which would help the city out by revenue and keep the city home. That's about it. And I thank you and the lawyers and you people that do the right thing. Thank you.
this legislation. I could talk for hours, I'm not going to, but I would like to reserve some time in case there are attorneys here from the Mortgage Bankers Association that are going to get up and speak. I would like to dispel their rhetoric, if I may.
I'm an attorney out of Lawrence, Massachusetts, and I represent a lot of post-foreclosure homeowners. When I get my clients, they come into the housing court, they're usually there on summary process eviction. They're terrified they're going to lose their home. Most of these people, they're not deadbeat homeowners. A lot of them have got to this point because they've either lost their job due to the economy. Many of them have become very ill. Some have had cancer or something serious has happened with their health or one of their loved ones, and they incur extra expenses. They end up falling a little bit behind on the mortgage. They call the mortgage company, say, look, I'm having some difficulties paying my mortgage right now, can we modify the loan? Many times the mortgage companies would get them into a payment program, they'd make the payments on time. 4 months after they make these payments on time, the mortgage company rips them out of the payment plan, and then they proceed to foreclosure. Many times, these documents that they foreclose with, they enter fraudulent documents into the registry. There's invalid assignments. Many of the banks that are foreclosing don't even legally own the property. By the time the person comes to the housing court, when they're facing this eviction, they don't have the money to hire an attorney. There are not enough pro bono attorneys out there to help these people. We need more attorneys to help these kind of people. They get in front of the housing court, they have to go into mandatory mediation. There are so many people out there in the Lawrence Housing Court and the Lynn Housing Court that have lost their homes to invalid and illegal foreclosures. And by the time they get to the housing court and get in front of mediation, the mediators have so many of these cases, they probably have 15 minutes to work with them. There is no way that they can go through a good faith effort with the bank to try to get a mortgage. What happens is the person usually will just give up and they'll say, I'll get out within 30 days. And that's not what we need. We need some kind of ordinance to be put in place so it doesn't get to that point where the homeowner has to leave their home. If they're lucky, sometimes they'll be able to file some counterclaims. Maybe some kind of claim against the bank for the deceptive trade practice or whatever. They'll pull it into Superior Court, and immediately the banks who have all the money and all the attorneys will pull that case out of the Superior Court. They'll remove it to federal court. At that time, the homeowner who has nowhere to go, who has no money to pay for an attorney, ends up giving up because the bank is able to engage in gamemanship and they have the money, so these people end up giving up. There has to be something, like I said, put in place, this ordinance. I support this ordinance. It is a good ordinance. It will help these people try to get a mortgage before it gets to the point where they're in the housing court and they lose their home. There needs to be some kind of preventative measure. So lawyers like me and like Eloise aren't in the housing court trying to save people, trying to keep a roof over their head after they've been illegally foreclosed upon. So I would ask that every member here adopt this ordinance. It makes sense. It's a preventative measure. It's going to protect the homeowners. It's going to provide a roof over their head. It's going to protect the banks. The bank's not going to lose by refinancing or modifying their loans. It's going to save the community. You're not going to have empty houses, and your real estate values aren't going to keep declining like they are. So I would suggest and I would strongly encourage that you adopt this ordinance.
We're going to do it.
Thank you.
Many people, and that is over here tonight, and for those who haven't been here, the opportunity to share their story. I hope this ordinance changes the culture of how most banks think that people's homes are not just a business transaction. They are people's homes, places where people have memories, share their love, raise their families, and I'm really
seconds?
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else in favor? Seeing no one else wishing to speak in favor, close the public hearing for all those in favor. Open the public hearing for anybody in opposition. Do not suppress any opinions. Anybody else, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition?
I do.
Anybody in opposition? Seeing no one wishing to speak in opposition, close the public hearing for all those in opposition. Before I close the entire public hearing, we have a couple of letters for the record.
We have 3 letters in favor from, one's from Gladys Vager, Executive Director of the Chelsea Collaborative, another one from Andrea Kelly, and also from Karina Ocello.